What is up, guys? Dzeeff here. Yesterday, a bunch of YouTubers, myself included, posted early 2022 Megaton openings. And because of that, we now know the entire set, including 3 new Egyptian God support cards that are actually pretty good. I mean, all things considered, right? They are Egyptian God support, which historically has been sort of hit or miss, but I think that these are on the better side compared to some cards we've gotten in the past. In today's video, I wanted to go over these 3 new cards, kind of give my initial impressions, thoughts, stuff like that, and talk about some combos where you can use them. These are releasing in the 2022 Megatons in just a few weeks. They are World Premiere cards, which means they're probably not going to be in Master Duel for quite a while, but they will be in the TCG in just a few weeks. First up, we have the Breaking Ruin God, and as you'll see in today's video, these are based on specific God cards. They're not like generic support like we've seen in the past sometimes. So this one is all about Obelisk, of course, as you can tell by the artwork. It is a quick play spell card that says the activation of this card or its effects cannot be negated, nor can its effects be negated. Special summon 1 Obelisk the Tormentor from your hand or graveyard, and if you do, it is unaffected by your opponent's card effects this turn. If you tribute 2 or more monsters you control at the same time to activate your card or effect, while you control Obelisk the Tormentor, you can banish this card from your graveyard, banish all monsters in your opponent's graveyard, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each one. You can only use each effect of the Breaking Ruin God once per turn. So this card is really cool. Now the first effect might seem a bit weird. There kind of seems like there's an extra couple words there maybe, but basically it protects the card not only when you activate it, but also when you use its graveyard effect, which is pretty good. This card is always going to happen, basically. Your opponent is not going to have any way to negate it. For the second effect, I think it's pretty good. You special summon Obelisk for free, basically, and it has an extra protection effect, which does make it a lot better. And that final effect obviously is meant to combo with Obelisk because you'll basically Regeki your opponent's field and then banish every monster in their graveyard on a new chain. The Breaking Ruin God is a very interesting piece of Obelisk support. It's kind of weird because in the past, Obelisk was actually the Egyptian God card that saw the most amount of competitive play, like 10 years ago in Frog decks, but these days, Slifer and Ra are actually a lot better. Slifer is a much better floodgate if you're trying to build a Protect the Castle Egyptian God deck, and Ra just has a lot more support in general, and it's a lot more versatile in how you can actually play it. With Obelisk, though, it's kind of tough to justify playing a dedicated deck around it instead of Slifer or Ra, but I think that this card is a step in the right direction for Obelisk support. Next up, we have the True Sun God, obviously Ra support, and it's kind of tricky printing Ra support right now because it's already so much more supported than the other 2 gods, but let's take a look and see what they did. So this is a continuous spell card that says, when this card is activated, add either 1 Winged Dragon of Ra or 1 card that mentions it from your deck to your hand, except the True Sun God. Monsters, except the Winged Dragon of Ra, cannot attack the turn they are special summoned. Once per turn during your main phase, you can send this card from your field or 1 Winged Dragon of Ra Immortal Phoenix from your deck to the graveyard, then send 1 the Winged Dragon of Ra from your monster zone to the graveyard. You can only activate 1 the True Sun God per turn. So what they've done here is that they've already acknowledged that Ra has a ton of support. This is taking it in a slightly different direction. This is all about the Immortal Phoenix. This completely sets it up because you have the Immortal Phoenix in your graveyard with that effect, and then you send the Ra on your field to the graveyard, which then triggers the Immortal effect in the grave to revive itself. So I think that this is definitely an interesting direction to take Ra support. As for the other effects on this card, I mean, the searching effect is great. You can play this in any Ra deck because this is basically a Tenki for either the Winged Dragon of Ra or one of the other cards that mentions it, and that has a good pool of cards that you can choose from here. You got like Ancient Chant and Blaze Cannon and stuff like that. This definitely has some good targets. One thing I did want to note here is that when it says monsters except Ra cannot attack the turn they are special summoned, it's not only talking about your monsters, it's talking about your opponent's monsters as well. Does that really matter? I mean, not a ton, but it could help you set up like 1 more turn than you might have been able to otherwise, and I think it's a nice bonus effect on an already very good card. Ra is really looking good with this new piece of support, obviously not as a real competitive deck, but definitely from a casual standpoint, this is a perfect card to help them out because it really adds whatever you want. I've tried out the Ra deck a number of times in the past, not only in Master Duel, but also in the TCG. It's a fun strategy. You definitely can get some OTKs, but consistency has always been a problem, so a card like this is really perfect for that strategy. Finally, we have the Revived Sky God, the new Slifer trap card, and this is the one that a lot of people are talking about. There are some really crazy combos with it, and I think we might actually see some people try out a Slifer control deck. This card is crazy powerful. Let's take a look at what it does. The activation of this card or its effects cannot be negated, nor can its effects be negated, so the same type of protection effect that the Obelisk Obelisk spell card had, special summon one Slifer the Sky Dragon from your graveyard, then each player draws cards until they have 6 cards in their hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard, place one monster born from your deck or graveyard on top of your deck, then if a Divine Beast monster is in your graveyard, draw one card. You can only use each effect of the revived Sun God once per turn. So here's the thing with this card. I actually think there is a lot of potential to get yourself down to very few cards in hand, put a Slifer in the graveyard with an effect like Foolish Burial or Curious or anything like that, and then you can on your opponent's turn use the revived Sun God to basically draw 6 cards and summon a 6,000 attack Floodgate monster while hopefully not giving your opponent that many in the process. Ideally, you're maybe giving them like 1 or 2 cards, meanwhile you're special summoning a big monster and drawing 6. I don't think that is that ridiculous. Curious is super easy to set up. You can use like any number of cards really, danger monsters, but even like the Sacred Beast support, the Dark Beckoning Beast combo, that is a 1 card Curious, which could be really interesting. Also keep in mind that because this card is a normal trap card, you can search it with Trap Trick, which essentially gives you 6 copies of it, which is really nice. This card is so good that I could actually see people splashing it into other decks. Basically any deck that can summon Curious can play this card really easily. You'd basically be playing a normal deck, but if you happen to draw this trap card, you would have like an instant win if you Curious for Slifer. It's kind of like when I was using Beatrice to send Yujo Friendship to use the Judgment of the Pharaoh card, but it definitely is a very unique effect, and I think people are going to try it out. The graveyard effect is pretty good as well. You are banishing it to stack a monster born from your deck or graveyard on top of your deck, and then if you have a Divine Beast in the grave, you are drawing it instantly, which could be pretty useful as a form of recovery. When it comes to Slifer specifically, I'm not sure if realistically you would be using your Monster Reborn on it, because Monster Reborning Slifer doesn't really do that much, but you could Monster Reborn a different card, you know, maybe that could be pretty good, or perhaps maybe you just need a big Slifer to OTK the opponent, in which case Monster Reborning it would be pretty good. That being said, I think the main effect of this card is the Revive Slifer effect and then draw 6, but I guess it does have that nice bonus, which is always cool on already good cards. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about these 3 new cards. Personally, I am very impressed, actually way more impressed than I ever could have imagined. When it comes to Megatins, we always know that Konami is going to put a bunch of nostalgia cards in there that maybe people aren't as excited about, but as far as nostalgia bait goes, I think these cards are actually better than a lot of it out there, and personally, I'm pretty excited to try all 3 of these out in different decks. Like I said, they're not going to be a Master Duel for a while, presumably, but at least in the TCG, you'll have a way to play these and try out some Egyptian God card strategies. Maybe I'll have to post a couple videos with them as well, because they do look really fun. Anyway, that is all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you later. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.